Okay, just wanted to do a quick deck tech. Deck building is one of my favorite parts of the Magic the Gathering, and through it you get to kind of see how a lot of cards can interact. You can put together something that is effective using really powerful cards as well as cards that you like. So having a deck come together is really satisfying in a way that you can get use of a lot of cards and see the interactions between some, especially with EDH, because since there are no doubles, you can really get crazy with some of the ways things get put together. So this one is going to be a 100 card EDH deck that runs as its commander Kathril Aspect Warper. It's from a newer commander set, and the main themes that you use with Kathril, because when he enters the battlefield, it's going to give out a lot of keywords and a lot of +1/+1 counters. And that's a lot of the major themes of the deck is the keywords and counters. But I also wanted to go over a couple of things that are in the deck that I changed up from the original one and kind of build this one all together. The major themes working with Kathril as well as having a couple other cards as well. So let's get started. The way the original deck got put together is I wanted to make something that ran some of these Phantom cards. These are older ones from Judgment, and how it works, I'm not sure if Phantom Nantu goes from Judgment, but he has been reprinted. How these ones work is it comes into play with 2 counters, and if damage would be dealt, it gets remove the counter instead. So what I figured is if all the counters were removed and they're a 0/0 creature, but they have something that pumps them and gives them +1/+1, then it means that they're indestructible. So that means that, like, damage is prevented, but they still get to stay out, even though they have no counters. So it's a good creature if you're able to give it some kind of aura where it gets pumped and it can stay on the battlefield for a long time. And that was a big part of the deck is to create threats through creatures that are hard to get rid of. So the Phantoms play an integral part. It's one of my personal favorites in terms of cards that I've added to the deck that work out very well. So the Phantoms, and then another big part of the deck is going to be keywords. So cards that have lots of keywords are typically pretty powerful, and then in addition, you can have those cards, and if they get destroyed, you can have them go to the Kathril once Kathril activates. So the beginning parts of the game will be things like getting cards with keywords out, getting them into your graveyard, and then once they're in the graveyard, then Kathril as a late game action can come out with a bunch of those keywords and give counters to himself. So big keyword players would be ones like Akroma, Angel of Wrath, Zatalpa, Vampire Nighthawk, Aerial Responder, Questing Beast. And Questing Beast is a great card in terms of not only does it have a bunch of keywords, but it's also powerful in its own. Plus things like Gifted Etherborn, that kind of thing. And then in addition to the keywords, I should go back for a sec. So the Phantom cards, it's good to have some kind of aura that could go on them. And then I discovered that a good aura to affix to the Phantoms would also be the Totem Armors. So having like Totem Armors like the Snake Umbra, Gift of Immortality, kind of, not exactly the same, but a little bit. Hyena Umbra, Spider Umbra. These kind of things, when given to these Phantom cards, you can pump them, make them almost indestructible, and then if they do somehow get destroyed, the Totem Armor goes instead. So that was the whole idea, is to give these cards these auras, and that way you have constant board state threat. Because if you're able to keep yourself a threat, especially in a 4-player commander game, it's important to kind of have presence and just keep going. In addition to those, we have a lot of really powerful auras. Just the whole point of the deck was to kind of I had called the deck, because this was the original idea, having the Phantoms and then the Totem Armors. That was the original idea for the deck. And the idea is I had nicknamed it Ghost in the Shell because you do ghosts as the phantoms, and then with the totem armor, and then more auras and more auras to make them more and more powerful. So the whole idea is to have those cards that are hard to get rid of, that have layers and layers of auras protecting them, and also creating more keywords and more power, just to keep yourself with one small creature like a Phantom Nomad, which is normally just 2/2. With a few extra auras, he's very hard to get rid of, and he's also very powerful. In addition to that, power play auras are really important. So once you have it where the creature's hard to remove, then you can start building him and creating more power for him. So once you have something like a Phantom Nomad that's out there, that's 3 removals away from actually leaving the battlefield, then you can start hitting him with things like the Angelic Destiny. That's gonna give him +4/+4 flying and first strike. Ancestral Mask, which gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment in play. Not aura, not just on your side, each other enchantment. In a 4-player commander game, that is extremely powerful. Board state enchantments are very common, and you could be looking at, +10/+10 to a creature for 3 mana with very little difficulty. Other things that I added on there would be more protection, things like Spectral Ward, Holy Mantle, and then just powerful Abzan colored enchantments like the Unflinching Courage to give lifelink and trample, the Gift of Orsova, which is just a great buffer for a regular creature, Rancor, just to have that recurring +2/+0 and trample, especially if you're building creatures up to be stronger. A couple other ones, Armadillo Cloak, Spirit Mantle, Shielded by Faith, which is great because this one is fantastic because if it's already on the battlefield and then you summon Kathril from the command zone, it'll attach itself to him. So he comes out as a large, multifaceted, powerful creature, and then also gets indestructible. So those kind of things are really, really powerful in terms of the actual deck. Now, the keyword abilities are a big deal when it comes to the Kathril. So, Chroma Angel Wrath, Zatalpa Primal Dawn, these you don't necessarily need to actually play, but they are good bombs for late game. Those can be put into the graveyard with a couple other effects, and then a few other creatures that'll have multiple keywords, being like Vampire Nighthawk, Aerial Responder, the Questing Beast, Gifted Etherborn, Deneth the Capuchin Paragon, Hero Vyros. So another part of the deck, since I'm heavy on the auras and the enchantments, Heroic is also a big theme. So having Heroic is just a way for you to get +1/+1 counters on smaller creatures, which will also be amplified by the fact that they have aura helping abilities. So, like, if you're casting auras onto a card and it's getting counters, it's just more beneficial for the whole deck. So ones like Hero Vyros, Fabled Hero, Ghostblade Eidolon, these bestow cards are also great for this deck because it gives you the option of making a small creature that you can build on top of, or you can bestow for creating a more powerful creature to make it even more powerful. The Baleful Eidolon, the Celestial Archon as a late game bomb. Eidolon at Countless Battles, he's great too because he also interacts with how many auras you have, so he's just one that's just another multifaceted creature where you can have him out, you can have him grow, you can give him +1/+1. He goes great on one of the Phantoms because if and that's another thing too about the bestow, is like you can use them as auras and then have creatures come out which you can then build upon again. The whole point of the deck is just to keep constant board state presence. Keep that constant board state presence and have yourself be a threat at all times. And then the Boon Satyr, that's a good flash one. The Agent of Fates, just to have some kind of control over your opponents, plus the keyword for the Death Touch helps out a lot. And now I'll just go over a couple other creatures and spells that I have in here, just things that I run that I feel are useful. The Battering Crassus, not super great in terms of like synergy with the whole deck, but it does have trample, it does have evolve, so it is going to be able to grow itself and get +1/+1 counters, plus it has that keyword. So I added it in there. I think it's a good addition. The Eidolon of Blossoms, easy add where draw card abilities, especially with how many enchantments I'm going to be playing, are just necessary. The Destiny Spinner was an interesting add, but it's mainly just for the first ability, which says creatures and enchantment spells you control cannot be countered. So I'm playing a lot of creatures, I'm playing a lot of enchantments. I'd rather not get them countered. The Palisade Giant is an old card from the original, from Return to Ravnica actually, that I just like. All damage would be prevented and dealt to Palisade Giant instead. It's a good distraction card for late game, especially if you have Kathril out and somebody's trying to deal it massive damage or anything like that. So also it's good for throwing this card out, doing your main attack phase, because any damage that would be dealt to any attacking creatures is dealt to the Palisade Giant instead, so you get a big swing and you don't lose your creatures. Drana's great because she gives counters and has 2 magnificent keyword abilities, plus she's a good card on her own for only 3 mana, so I felt she was great to have as an addition to the deck. The Leyline Prowler, he's a great utility card because he has Death Touch, Lifelink, and can make mana, so he's a mana maker, plus he's also got those keywords. Dragonscale General, this is a good one just for board state presence and increasing your +1/+1 counters, especially if you're trying to have some solid board presence, and if you can keep yourself alive for a little while, it's just good to have more counters show up as often as you possibly can. Corpsejack Menace, he was an easy add as well, because he's an inexpensive card to add to the deck, and doubling those 1/1 counters as often as you can is just wonderful. The Elderwood Scion. This is an interesting card that I had not known about. I guess it had come out recently. But he does give the 2 keywords, and then he also helps out any auras that might be attached to him, and he also prevents himself from being removed by, like, say, if somebody's going to hit him with a Doomblade or some kind of removal spell, it makes that card cost 2 more for your opponents. So having him help himself with the auras and then also prevent damage being done to him, plus having the 2 keywords, was a no-brainer for me. The Hateful Eidolon, this is just more for last minute. He does get his own keyword ability, and then in addition to that, whenever an enchanted creature you control dies, draw a card for each aura you control that was attached to it. So he's great to have if you have a bunch of creatures with a bunch of auras out and you know shit's about to go down. You can have him out, and that way you get a little bit of card draw at least. Heliod's Pilgrim, just to help you find yourself an aura you might need. Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. This one was just to have some kind of big bomb that could be protection from creatures, has keyword, is just a good late game play. Just because being able to swing for that 4 every turn and also block and also have yourself be protected from attacks, that's fantastic when it comes to late game, because now you can prevent yourself from being taken out from the final few turns. And then Daggertar the Adamant, obviously Abzan, really great, has keywords, gets counters, totally no-brainer. And then Soul Flare. So Soul Flare was a good addition because it works off the keywords in the graveyard as well, and you don't actually have to have the Soul Flare and the Kathril can work in conjunction. So what's great is that you can summon the Kathril, have it get all the keyword abilities, and then the Soul Flare can get all those keyword abilities through the Delve as well. So you don't have to give it to one or the other. If you have both, you can do both. A couple other spells just to keep things in line. The Caramage's Blessing just to buff, and if it's an enchanted creature, just because I know I'm going to have enchanted creatures nonstop. Swiftfoot Boots, that's mainly for the Kathril. Hexproof Haste. Total no-brainer. Have him come out, be big, be hexproof, be haste. Johnny's Presence, +1/+1, gain indestructible. Always good to protect your guys. Commune with the Gods, just to have a little bit of a mana maker ability. Abs and Ascendancy. This one will be for just early games, so that way you can get some +1/+1 counters. You can have it late game too, and then get a little 1/1 white spirit action if you need it, so that way you have small creatures that you can then build back up if you needed to. Dune Blast is great, especially with Kathril on the battlefield. If you're able to pop off Kathril and then pop off the Dune Blast, you find yourself in a very good position. Test of Faith, just another prevention card. And then it also gives counters, which is great. Seek the Wilds for a little bit of card advantage. On Sarah's Wings. Now, this one doesn't necessarily help the Kathril, but it is a good one for having just a small creature be pumped. So, gets legendary +1/+1, has flying, vigilance, and lifelink, which is fantastic. Daybreak Coronet, very cheap aura. Since I'm already going to be having creatures that have a lot of auras on them, it's super easy to add. Just 2 white mana and gets +3/+3, first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. Definitely a bomb maker for sure. So a small 1/1 creature with some other enchantment on it, plus the Daybreak Coronet is a threat in and of its own. If you can have yourself have a flying, first strike, vigilance, lifelink, +5/+5, 1/1, that's already more powerful than most like regular power cards that people will play. The Feat of Resistance, just good for counter and protection. The Eternal Thirst, that's another counter maker. Plus lifelink is always good to have for an EDH game. Eladamri's Call is a fantastic instant because if you have something like a Boon Satyr that you're looking for, you can instant Eladamri's Call and then search for the Boon Satyr and then flash the Boon Satyr onto a creature. So that's just very, very helpful in terms of a mid-game play if you're trying to make some stuff happen really fast. Kodama's Reach, good in any green deck. Gerard's Orders, this is just for searching and then also throwing a card into the graveyard to feed the Kathril. So what you do with the Gerard's Orders is look for a creature that is helpful to you now, and then also throw something like a Chroma or the Zitalpa into the graveyard so that way you can feed the Kathril later. Casualties of War, just a good card for removal. If you find yourself a little bit stuck on the board state, you can throw that one out there. Cultivate, again, another easy, no-brainer, green mana maker. Well, it doesn't make mana, but you know what I'm talking about. Rise to Glory. This one is good because not only does it give you the creature, but you also get the aura as well. So you can find yourself throwing a big creature and a big aura out immediately. Something like Rise to Glory to hit a Chroma, Angel of Wrath, plus a big aura to pump them up is fantastic as well. Krufix's Insight grabs you up to 3 enchantments and puts the rest of revealed cards in your graveyard. So you can actually have some stuff get thrown into your graveyard as well. That'll have the keywords to feed the Kathril later. God's Willing, just another good instant protection. The Abzan Charm, just to help you out with a little bit of, another multifaceted, easy-to-use tool. And finally, Buried Alive. Buried Alive, if you can pop off earlier in the game, is definitely going to be better off, because the more keywords you can get out faster, the better, because Kathril is only a 5 mana cost. So having him come out on turn 5 with some fantastic keywords already, because if you hit Buried Alive turn 3, hit Kathril turn 5, you already have yourself a massive threat, which is just fantastic and basically the whole point of the deck, because you want to make yourself as much of a threat as often as possible to win the game. All right, so that's been basically how this deck has played out. I have more decks to get through. The lands and everything I really didn't get to, but it's a lot of basic stuff just so that way you can kind of just get your mana sources, not too expensive or anything, and I'll also throw up all the deck list on the link below. All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.